This is a quick guide on how to use my favorite Warlock build, which I simply call the Invincible Well Lock. I'll leave a dim link of the build in the description. Now I'll break this video into 3 sections. You read the description for video timestamps if you want to skip to the part you need. So, this build is my favorite because it is universally applicable. This is also my favorite build to do solo flawless dungeons with. It makes it so easy. It makes encounters so much less stressful. Plus, you can pretty much use any exotic you want with this build, and it will still perform expectedly. It also requires no seasonal mods, and will be an easy build to put together leading into Lightfall. This build may be subject to some minor tweaks moving into Lightfall with all the new changes to elemental mods, but it'll primarily be the same, because it's not reliant on them. So this means you can run super helpful exotics like Aeons, and generate heavy while still playing super aggressively, which is super useful in endgame content like raids, master raids, GMs, and even day 1 raids. This will also help trivialize solo dungeons, especially solo flawless dungeons. I will go more in depth on how to use this build in the third part of this video, so let's get into the build. So you will want Well of Radiance as your super. And then you'll want to have on Healing Rift and any kind of glide. I prefer Burst since you can sword skate and well skate with this build, and that's a lot of fun. For melee, I prefer Incinerator Snap because you will mostly be within close quarters, but you can swap to Celestial Fire for dealing with longer ranged encounters. And your grenade must be Healing Grenade. This is what the build centers around. For your aspects, you will want Touch of Flame and Icarus Dash. Touch of Flame allows your Healing Grenade to proc Restoration ×2. Icarus Dash is just great for movement. For your fragments, you will want to use Ember of Empyrean, Ember of Solace, Ember of Tempering, and Ember of Torches. For your weapons, the only necessary weapon is a solar weapon, more specifically the Callus Mini Tool. This will be your main weapon for this build. You can also use a BXR Battler for long-ranged encounters, but in harder endgame content it's tougher to get quick kills with the BXR. So what I recommend doing is getting 2 Callus Mini Tools. You don't need to, but I prefer it, it's really nice to have. So what I do is I run a Callus with Threat Detector and Surround for harder content like Master Raids, GMs, Master Dungeons, Day 1 Raids, etc. If I'm running more normal content, and sometimes certain harder encounters will require this kind of weapon, it's nice to have another Callus with Incandescent and Moving Target. You can swap Moving Target for something else that you like. I really like Moving Target, but it just makes clearing lots of adds easier. So it's good to have those options. Besides that, you can have whatever you want as your primary and heavy. I like to run Wither Horde a lot since it helps with ad clearing. If I need more damage, I will run something like Arbalest or primary Slug like the Heritage. For heavies, this is entirely up to you and what the activity demands. I usually keep a good rocket like the Hothead. You can have a Palmyra, those are easier to get, or good linear on me. Having a solar machine gun like the Fixed Odds is good too as backup since it's great for ad clear and synergizing with your build. But again, you can run pretty much anything. One weapon that I recommend always having in your inventory is Half-Truths and the other half with Eager Edge. Now since you're a solar warlock, you can sword skate and well skate, which makes this build even better for traversal. Plus, it's super fun. Like for example, when you're doing a solo flawless run of Spire of the Watcher, you can easily skip the first parkour encounter just by well skating past it. It makes runs so much quicker, easier, and safer. Plus you get to flex on people when you skip an entire parkour encounter. If you want me to make a guide on how to do all the Warlock movement tech for controller, as well as mouse and keyboard, just let me know in the comments. Because I know there's a lot of videos out there for mouse and keyboard, but I know it hasn't been covered on controller too heavily. Now, if we implement armor stats and mods, this can enhance the build even more. By focusing on resilience and discipline, you will be able to take more damage and get your grenade back faster. There will be times when you run out of restoration and will need to get it back as soon as you can. These mod setups can help you in those situations. The most useful armor mod to add is Bomber. You add this to any solar class item. This allows you to regenerate a significant amount of your grenade energy immediately by activating your Healing Rift. This can come in handy for when you run out of restoration and your grenade is still recharging. For other mods, you can run Bountiful Wells, Elemental Armaments, and Melee Wellmaker. This way, you get even more energy back on your grenade by simply getting kills with your solar weapon. Once Lightfall comes out, you can swap out the Well mod for whatever those new mods that they have for a similar effect. but it's not reliant on these, which is good to know because you can use this jumping right into Lightfall with all the changes. My preferred exotics are Aeons, so you can generate heavy ammo for your team. Claws of Ahamkara, since you have an extra melee, which helps getting kills quicker to keep restoration going if you don't know what other exotic to run, and I also really like this for solo content. It's a lot better than people give it credit for. And the Eye of Another World. It's just flat ability regen, which is nice if you're into that. Other exotics that could still work with this build are Stag, Phoenix Protocol, and Lunafactions. And the Lunafactions have come in handy quite a bit during raids. It's up to you to use what you feel like using. And the beauty of this build is you don't even need an exotic if you don't have one. If you just have stasis arms, you can just throw in a grenade kickstart mod for even more grenade regen if you want. So the way you use this build is fairly simple. You'll throw a healing grenade at your feet, activating restoration ×2, and what this does is it gives you 65 health per second of healing. This is enough healing to make you feel near invincible in most endgame content, but you will only have a certain amount of time available for your restoration, and the only way to extend it is by getting a kill from any solar source. This is where the Callus Mini tool on the claws in your melee come in handy. Callus Mini tool, especially with what we talked about with Surround and Threat Detector, it will melt enemies, even in higher difficulties. In this footage, I'm doing Master Spire of the Watcher solo. As you can see, I'm able to tank so much damage, as well as melt enemies quick enough to keep my restoration procced. To make it as powerful as you can, throw out a melee attack at some enemies to proc Radiant, which gives your weapon a 25% damage boost, on top of the 30% boost from Surround, which activates when 3 or more enemies are around you. By getting a kill, the restoration timer will be extended, as you can see below, keeping you near invincible for as long as you can get kills within the time frame. And to top it off, you have a Well of Radiance as backup. If you need to drop a well for emergency heals, you have that available. If your team needs a well as someone running Aeons to make ammo for the team, you got it handled. You'll become an asset to every team with this build. I hope this guide helps. Feel free to ask any questions in the comments.